It was a crisp morning in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, where the sun cast golden rays over the bustling streets and the quiet courtyards of the presidential palace. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young and resolute leader of the nation, sat at his desk, surrounded by stacks of reports detailing the progress of his ambitious land reform policies. At 37, Traoré had become a symbol of hope and defiance, steering Burkina Faso toward self-reliance in the face of persistent security challenges and economic pressures. His reforms, aimed at empowering rural farmers and revitalizing local agriculture, were beginning to bear fruit, with villages reporting increased crop yields and newfound economic stability. Yet, the weight of leadership was never far from his mind. Insurgent attacks in the north and east continued to test the nation's resilience, and international skepticism about his rejection of Western aid models lingered like a shadow. As Traoré reviewed a document outlining irrigation improvements in the Sahel region, his assistant, Marie Caboret, burst into the room, her usual composure replaced by a spark of excitement. Holding a tablet, she approached his desk with urgency. "Mr. President," she said, her voice trembling with enthusiasm, "you need to see this. It's Jasmine Crockett." Traoré raised an eyebrow, intrigued but cautious. Jasmine Crockett, the outspoken U.S. Congresswoman from Texas, was known for her fiery advocacy on social justice and her unapologetic critiques of global inequalities. Her name was not one he expected to hear in the context of his daily work. "What's this about, Marie?" he asked, setting aside his papers. Marie handed him the tablet, already cued to a video of Crockett addressing the U.S. House of Representatives. Traoré pressed play, and the screen filled with Crockett's commanding presence. Standing at the podium, her voice was steady yet passionate, her eyes fixed on the camera as if speaking directly to the world. "Today, I want to shine a light on a leader who is redefining what it means to govern with courage and dignity," she began. "In Burkina Faso, President Ibrahim Traoré is showing us that sovereignty is not a slogan, it's a way of life. He's rejected the tired, exploitative economic models imposed by the West and is building solutions that center his people. His land reforms are transforming lives, proving that Africa doesn't need saving, it needs respect." Traoré leaned back in his chair, the words hitting him like a gust of desert wind. The chamber in the video was silent, the weight of Crockett's statement hanging in the air. She continued, her voice rising with conviction. "While others talk about change, Traoré is delivering it. He's empowering farmers, rebuilding communities, and showing the world that dignity is earned through action, not handouts. We in the United States could learn a thing or two from his example." The video ended and Traoré sat motionless, the tablet still in his hands. Marie watched him, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Sir," she said softly, "this is unprecedented. The world is watching." Traoré exhaled slowly, his mind racing. Recognition from a figure like Crockett, whose platform reached millions, was not something he had sought or anticipated. His focus had always been inward, on the farmers like Awa, who now grew millet on once barren land, or the children in rural schools with new textbooks funded by local cooperatives. Yet Crockett's words were more than praise. They were a validation of Burkina Faso's struggle for autonomy in a world quick to dismiss African innovation. "This changes things," he murmured, more to himself than to Marie. He rose and walked to the window, gazing out at the palace courtyard where workers unloaded supplies for a new community health center. "It's not about me," he said, turning to Marie. "It's about what we're building. She sees it, Marie. She sees what so many refuse to acknowledge." Marie nodded, her excitement tempered by the gravity of the moment. "What do we do now, sir?" she asked. Traoré's eyes narrowed with resolve. "We respond," he said. "Not for the cameras, but for our people. We thank her, but we make it clear that our work is for Burkina Faso, not for applause." As Marie left to gather the communications team, Traoré returned to his desk, the weight of Crockett's words settling into his thoughts. This was no ordinary moment. It was a chance to amplify Burkina Faso's vision on a global stage. The presidential palace buzzed with a quiet intensity as Captain Ibrahim Traoré's team gathered to craft a response to Jasmine Crockett's unexpected praise. The Congresswoman's speech had already begun to ripple across social media, with hashtags like Respect Africa and Traoré leads gaining traction on platforms like X in Ouagadougou, where internet access was still a luxury for many. The news spread through radio broadcasts and word of mouth, igniting a sense of pride among Burkinabe citizens. Traoré, however, remained focused on ensuring that this moment served his nation's purpose, not his own ego. He sat with Marie Caboret and a small group of advisors, sketching out a statement that would balance gratitude with a reaffirmation of Burkina Faso's self-reliant path. "Start with thanks," Traore instructed, his voice calm but firm. "Congresswoman Crockett has done something rare. She's acknowledged our work without condescension. But we must make it clear that our reforms, our struggles, are for our people, not for foreign approval." Marie nodded, typing furiously on her laptop as ideas flowed. The room was filled with a shared sense of purpose, tempered by the knowledge that Burkina Faso's challenges, ongoing jihadist violence in the north, economic strain, and climate-driven droughts, demanded unwavering focus. Traore's policies, including land redistribution and cooperative farming initiatives, had begun to stabilize rural communities, but the road ahead was long. Crockett's words, while uplifting, could not erase the reality of displaced families or the need for more schools and clinics. As the team worked, Traore reflected on the broader implications of the moment. Burkina Faso's pivot away from Western aid, particularly after his 2022 coup that ousted a government seen as overly reliant on foreign powers, had drawn both admiration and criticism. France's diminished influence in the Sahel and Burkina Faso's growing ties with Russia and regional allies like Mali and Niger had reshaped its geopolitical landscape. Crockett's speech, coming from a progressive American voice, was a rare bridge between continents, a signal that Burkina Faso's experiment in sovereignty was being noticed in unlikely places. Yet, Traore knew that external praise could be a double-edged sword, inviting scrutiny as much as support. By evening, a draft statement was ready. Traore reviewed it carefully, ensuring it captured the humility and resolve that defined his leadership. The next morning, he stood before a packed press conference in the palace's main hall, dressed in a simple tunic woven in traditional Burkinabe patterns. The room hummed with anticipation, cameras flashing as local and international journalists awaited his words. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice steady, "I am deeply grateful to Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett for her generous recognition of our work in Burkina Faso. Her words reflect an understanding that sovereignty is not just a concept. It is the daily labor of our farmers, our teachers, and our youth." He paused, letting the words settle. "But let me be clear, our commitment is to the Burkinabe people. We are building a future where dignity is earned through our own efforts, where our land feeds our children, and where our solutions come from our communities." Congresswoman Crockett spoke of respect, and we echo that call. Africa does not need to be saved. It needs to be respected. The room erupted in applause, especially from local journalists who saw in Traore's words a reflection of their own aspirations. International correspondents, however, scribbled notes with a mix of curiosity and skepticism, some questioning whether Burkina Faso's model could withstand global pressures. As Traore stepped away from the podium, Marie approached, her tablet glowing with notifications. "Sir, the statement is trending globally," she said. "People are calling it a defining moment for African leadership." Traore nodded, his expression unreadable. "Good," he said quietly. "Now let's get back to work. Our people are waiting." The echoes of Captain Ibrahim Traoré's press conference reverberated far beyond the walls of the presidential palace in Ouagadougou. By midday, his statement had been translated into multiple languages, shared across X, and broadcast on international news networks. In Burkina Faso, radio stations replayed his words, and in rural villages, community leaders gathered under baobab trees to discuss the significance of a U.S. congresswoman recognizing their nation's struggle. The hashtag #RespectAfrica trended globally alongside Burkina Rising, as activists and ordinary citizens alike celebrated what they saw as a rare moment of solidarity. For many Burkinabe, Traore's response was not just a diplomatic gesture, but a powerful affirmation of their collective resilience, especially in the face of ongoing insurgencies that had displaced thousands and strained resources. In the United States, Jasmine Crockett watched the live stream of Traore's speech from her office in Washington, D.C. Her staff had alerted her to the growing buzz online, where her address was being hailed as a bold departure from the usual Western narratives about Africa. Crockett, a fierce advocate for marginalized communities, felt a surge of pride but also a sense of responsibility. She had not anticipated the global impact of her words, but Traore's measured yet resolute response deepened her admiration. During a follow-up interview on a major news network, she leaned into the moment with characteristic candor. "I'm not here to romanticize Burkina Faso's challenges," she said, her voice steady. They're fighting jihadist violence, climate change, and economic hurdles. But Traore is proving that solutions don't always come from outside. They come from the people who know their land best. That's a lesson for all of us. Not everyone shared her enthusiasm. Some American commentators, skeptical of Traore's rejection of Western aid and his alignment with Russia for security support, accused Crockett of oversimplifying a complex situation. On a conservative talk show, a pundit remarked, "Burkina Faso's policies sound noble, but can they survive without international backing? Crockett's speech is inspiring, but it's naive." Crockett, undeterred, took to X to respond, "Skeptics can doubt all they want. Burkina Faso's progress under Traore shows what's possible when you trust your people over foreign agendas. Respect Africa." Her post garnered thousands of likes, amplifying the debate and drawing attention to Burkina Faso's experiment in self-reliance. Back in Ouagadougou, Traore was keenly aware of the international spotlight but remained focused on the work at hand. He visited a cooperative farm in the village of Lambilla, just outside the capital, where farmers had doubled their millet production thanks to land reforms and government-supplied irrigation systems. There he met Caddy, a mother of 3 who proudly showed him baskets of freshly harvested grains. "This land was dry 2 years ago," she said, her eyes bright with pride. "Now I feed my family and sell the surplus. You gave us the tools, Mr. President." Traore knelt beside her, inspecting the soil. "You're the one who made this happen, Caddy," he replied. "This is what sovereignty looks like." The visit, captured by local journalists, went viral, reinforcing Traore's image as a leader who prioritized action over rhetoric. Yet, he knew the praise from Crockett, and the global attention it brought came with heightened expectations. During a late-night meeting with his advisors, he stressed the need to accelerate ongoing projects, training programs for young farmers, solar-powered water pumps for remote villages, and security measures to protect communities from insurgent attacks. "The world is watching," he told his team. "But our duty is to our people. Let's prove them right by proving ourselves right." As Traore left the meeting, Marie handed him a report on a new partnership with a Malian agricultural institute, a step toward regional cooperation. He nodded, a faint smile breaking through his serious demeanor. Crockett's words had sparked a global conversation, but it was moments like these, small, tangible victories, that fueled his resolve. The global conversation sparked by Jasmine Crockett's speech and Ibrahim Traoré's response showed no signs of slowing. In Burkina Faso, the moment had galvanized a sense of national pride, with community leaders and youth groups organizing forums to discuss how to build on the momentum. In the bustling markets of Bobo Dioulasso, traders swapped stories of Traoré's reforms, while in rural classrooms, teachers used the occasion to inspire students to dream big. The narrative of an Africa that could forge its own path, free from external dependency, was taking root, and Traoré's leadership was at its heart. Yet he remained acutely aware that pride alone could not address the persistent threats of insurgency, food insecurity, and climate change. The world's applause was fleeting, his people's progress was not. Across the continent, Traoré's vision began to inspire others. In Nigeria, a youth-led movement called Own Our Future launched crowdfunding campaigns to support local farming cooperatives, citing Burkina Faso as a model. In Mali, a delegation of agricultural experts arrived in Ouagadougou to study Traoré's land reform strategies, hoping to replicate them in their own communities. These developments were not lost on Traoré, who saw regional cooperation as a cornerstone of true sovereignty. During a meeting with the Malian delegates, he emphasized the need for African nations to share knowledge and resources. "We are stronger together," he said, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "The Sahel's challenges are ours to solve, not the West's to dictate." Meanwhile, in the United States, Jasmine Crockett found herself at the center of a polarized debate. Her speech had earned her praise from progressive circles and African diaspora communities, who saw her as a rare voice challenging neocolonial narratives. At an international conference on global development in New York, she doubled down on her message. "Burkina Faso under Traoré is a case study in what happens when you prioritize your people over foreign interests," she told a packed audience. "He's not waiting for permission to lead, he's doing it." The room erupted in applause, with several African delegates rising to their feet. Yet conservative critics continued to question her stance, arguing that Burkina Faso's reliance on Russian security assistance undermined its claims of independence. Crockett dismissed the criticism with a sharp retort on X. "If you're mad about Burkina Faso's choices, ask why the West. Help often comes with strings. respect Africa. In Ouagadougou, Traore followed these debates with a mix of curiosity and detachment. He appreciated Crockett's advocacy but knew that Burkina Faso's true test lay in its ability to deliver results. During a visit to a newly opened school in the village of Kamzilga, he met Adama, a 12-year-old girl who dreamed of becoming an engineer. Clutching a notebook filled with sketches of irrigation systems, she told him, "I want to make our farms stronger like you're doing." Traore knelt beside her, his usual stoicism softening. "You're already stronger than you know, Adama," he said. "This country is counting on your dreams." The exchange, captured by a local journalist, went viral, with many on social media calling Adama a symbol of Burkina Faso's future. Back at the palace, Traore's team worked tirelessly to sustain the momentum. The Minister of Agriculture announced partnerships with local universities to train young farmers in sustainable techniques, while Marie coordinated efforts to expand access to clean water in remote areas. Each initiative was a step toward the self-sufficiency Traore championed, but he knew the world was watching more closely now. Crockett's speech had elevated Burkina Faso's profile, but it had also raised the stakes. "We're not just building for today," he told his advisors during a late-night strategy session. "We're building for Adama, for her generation, for an Africa that stands tall." As the sun set over Ouagadougou, casting a warm glow across the city's vibrant streets, Captain Ibrahim Traoré stood on a stage in the heart of the capital, addressing a crowd gathered to celebrate the first anniversary of Burkina Faso's expanded land reform program. The event was a testament to the nation's progress. Farmers displayed baskets of millet and sorghum, children waved handmade flags, and local musicians filled the air with the rhythms of the balafon. Traoré, dressed in traditional Burkinabe attire, looked out at the sea of faces: farmers, students, elders, and even a few international journalists who had stayed to witness the unfolding story. Jasmine Crockett's speech, now weeks past, had left an indelible mark, but it was the resilience of the Burkinabe people that truly defined this moment. Traoré's voice carried a quiet strength as he spoke. "Today, we honor not just our achievements, but the hands that made them possible," he said. "From the fields of Laumbilla to the classrooms of Kamzilga, you have shown the world that Burkina Faso's future is built by its people." He paused, acknowledging the challenges that remained: insurgent attacks that continued to haunt the north, droughts that tested farmers' resolve, and the ever-present pressure of global expectations. Yet he emphasized these were not reasons to falter but to press forward. "Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett saw what we are capable of," he continued, prompting murmurs of approval from the crowd. "Her words reminded us that dignity is not given, it is earned, and we will keep earning it together." The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing through the night. Among them was Adama, the aspiring engineer, standing proudly with her family, her notebook of irrigation sketches tucked under her arm. Nearby, Caddy, the farmer from Laumbilla, held her youngest child, who wore a smile as bright as the harvest moon. These were the faces that fueled Traoré's mission, the proof that his policies were not just statistics, but lifelines for communities long overlooked. The event, live-streamed on X, drew thousands of viewers worldwide, with hashtags like Burkina Rising and Leadership with Dignity trending once more. A Nigerian activist tweeted, "Traoré's Burkina Faso is a blueprint for Africa. It's not perfect, but it's ours." In the United States, Jasmine Crockett watched the celebration from her home in Dallas, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and resolve. Her speech had been a spark, but Traoré and his people had turned it into a flame. She took to the stage at a community event in her district where she spoke of Burkina Faso as an example of what was possible when leadership trusted its people. "Ibrahim Traoré isn't just leading a country, he's leading a movement," she said, her voice resonant. "He's showing us that sovereignty isn't about isolation, it's about self-determination, and that's a lesson for every nation, including ours." Her words, met with a standing ovation, underscored her growing role as a global advocate for rethinking Africa's place in the world. Back in Burkina Faso, Traoré returned to the palace after the celebration, his mind already on the next steps. His team was finalizing plans for a regional summit with leaders from Mali, Niger, and Senegal to discuss shared strategies for food security and counterterrorism. The Minister of Education reported that 50 new rural schools would open by year's end, funded entirely by local revenue. Marie, ever diligent, handed him a proposal for a youth innovation hub to train the next generation of engineers like Adama. "We're just getting started," Traoré said, his voice steady but infused with hope. The world may watch, but our people will decide our legacy. As he looked out at the city, now quiet under a starlit sky, Traore felt the weight of the journey ahead. Crockett's praise had been a catalyst, a rare moment of recognition that amplified Burkina Faso's voice. But the true measure of his leadership lay in the small victories, the fields that bloomed, the children who learned, the communities that stood taller. For Traore, this was not the end of a story, but the beginning of a new chapter, one written by the hands and hearts of the Burkina people. And as the world continued to watch, Burkina Faso marched forward, not for applause, but for the promise of a future forged in dignity and determination.